Hello, I'm Roy Richardson, and this is the Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast. Welcome to this week's edition of the Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Roy Richardson. The Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast is brought to you by Aurora Infotech, an information security consulting and professional services firm helping small to medium-sized businesses in the Central Florida area. Today, folks, my guest is the CEO of a professional services firm who spent the first 20 years of his career in corporate America and the last 20 as an entrepreneur. He founded VALiNTRY Services, a technology consulting and IT staffing firm in 2013, following the successful startup and sale of his first bootstrap, Reflectx Services, to Maxim Healthcare back in 2007. VALiNTRY uses deep knowledge of the healthcare, information technology, manufacturing, consumer products industries, expertise to deliver innovative Salesforce digital transformation to clients, reducing business complexity, increased efficiency, and expanded business growth. The firm is unique as one of the few Salesforce Silver Consulting Partners that also provides staffing services in addition to Salesforce Consulting. VALiNTRY has also received multiple awards for growth, innovation, and workspace excellence from the likes of Deloitte magazine and American Business Journals, amongst others. And that, folks, is no surprise because my guest today is no other than Mr. Daryl Dixon. Daryl, welcome, and I'm so happy to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much, Roy. It's great to be here with you. Looking forward to speaking with you.
Awesome, and I'm looking forward to sharing your journey with our audience. So, Daryl, tell us a little bit in terms of your start and why did you become an entrepreneur?
Well, Roy, I worked with only 3 companies over a 20-year period in corporate America, and I really appreciate what they taught me because I really feel like I got a Harvard degree from these companies. They were large publicly traded companies, and had an outstanding experience with them, enjoyed working with them, progressed up through the corporate ladder. But from the time I had been in college, I had always had a dream of starting my own business, of owning my own business. And interestingly, what kind of intrigued me was the way our tax code system supports entrepreneurs as opposed to our tax code supporting, just W-2 employees. And so was on a career track and kind of came to a crossroad when they put in place Sarbanes-Oxley. And it just seemed like it was a perfect time for me to leave the last company that I was with, and said, if I'm ever going to start a company, now's the time to do it. And so we had lived in the Philadelphia suburbs at that time and moved to Florida. And my wife and I started Reflectx Staffing on our kitchen table, and we built that company, and that's that's how it started in terms of becoming an entrepreneur.
And what's the drive, and people get into business for different things, but there is a drive and a passion there once you cross over from working for someone to becoming your own boss and becoming an entrepreneur. And what's your drive and passion?
My drive and passion is I have a deep belief that people should enjoy the place they work. And that's not always true, especially in a public company where your goal is to meet the next quarterly goal or the next quarterly growth target. They're in a position a lot of times where they have to make short-term decisions that don't have necessarily positive long-term impact. And probably while I had a great experience with the companies that I worked with, the last company I was actually chief operating officer and still didn't feel like I had enough control of the corporate values and the way that we actually did business. And really came to the realization that if I was going to create that environment where people enjoyed working for the company, for my company, it was going to have to be my company. Otherwise, there were things like boards of directors or, obviously the CEOs of companies that would have say over what we would do or what we wouldn't do. And so that was the driving factor. It wasn't because I didn't experience success or anything like that, but it was that if we're going to create this positive place to work and for me to be able to run my own business, it was going to have to be on my own, and I was going to have to make a big bet. And I bet my life savings when we started our first entrepreneurial business.
It's so good to hear you say that, in terms of, if you, that you're a firm believer that, wherever you work, you should really and truly enjoy what you're doing. And I'm a firm believer of that as well. And I said to myself, actually, it's a similar story somewhat, because, I work for companies as well, and finally decided, what, the only time that I was my happiest was when I was my own boss. And you are in control of the rudder, the throttle, the direction, and everything else of the ship. And you help form that culture that makes that creates the success of the company. So
as well as I do, some days that is great. Say, what was I thinking? Why did I do this? What was I thinking? So,
the other days you feel like you're in the lifeboat behind that big boat. I hear you.
When you're responsible to make a payroll and cash flow and a credit line and governance, as it relates to bank requirements, there's nobody else to blame if there's a problem. And so
that's true.
Those are all important things to be able to make your payroll and treat your employees with the respect that they deserve.
Well, I could say this, Daryl, from knowing you, and we're in certain circles together, etc. I am not surprised at all about your success. I'm not surprised about the accolades and awards that your company has run, and that is reflective, and I would say indicative of the environment that you've created within VALiNTRY and amongst your employees. I mean, it takes a leader to lead, but really it takes a great coach and somebody who can inspire a workforce to really get things moving. So kudos to you.
Thank you. That's very kind of you to say, Ray.
No problem. No problem. So tell us a little more about VALiNTRY and what, tell us what it is, what it stands for, what you do there, and what makes VALiNTRY unique compared to other firms who may be offering, maybe not the same, but somewhat similar services.
Sure. Well, the key motivator for starting VALiNTRY Services was the realization back with those corporate enterprises that technology can make an enormous difference in the success of a business. And I had the opportunity of working with a chief information officer at that time who built an amazing operating system for me that allowed us to take 32% market share of a national base of certain healthcare services that we provide in the allied health field. I quickly learned just how much impact it had, how much our clients liked it, and what it provided for me operationally. And when we started VALiNTRY, I had the opportunity to go back and find him, ask him if he wanted to do something crazy like start a new company, and he did, and have the opportunity to still work with him today. And that, I'm kind of embarrassed to tell you, but that goes back to the late 1990s.
Wow.
So, and then three of my other business partners I've worked with for over 20 years as well. So the core of us have worked together for a long time in a variety of settings. But for this particular company, we thought there's really nothing more important other than, of course, the product or the service that a company offers, as technology is and people are in terms of having a successful business. And so we put those two together and have worked for for over 7 years in terms of exactly how do we get the right combination, because we were experts at finding difficult to find talent resources in the healthcare field, and then in the technology field that we applied. We've always been a web-based company for the last 21 years. We've depended on the web. It's brought us our living. Because our service delivery is national. We actually don't do a whole lot of work locally, but in terms of our placement work that we do, as well as our technology consulting work, all of that is done for organizations across the country, and the majority of our consulting work is actually done remotely.
Oh, nice. Nice. So you actually, because you work remotely, and a lot of this is done outside of, let's say Central Florida and other parts of the country. How did the, I would think that you probably still were impacted by the pandemic, but you probably were better off than others because you already had that remote work mentality and capability built in within your organization.
Yes, I would say we had the benefit of two things. One is that we've always used laptops, portability. So for the employees to pack up their laptops, those that were, working here in our central office and here in the Orlando area, we also have an office in Allen, Texas, and then one in Nashville, Tennessee. But literally, every employee was able to literally close their laptops, leave the office, and continue to work really just as they had.
Nice.
So that was beneficial. The second part, from a consulting standpoint, as well as our staffing business, is they were able to have access to the databases that we depend on, the work tools that we depend on, and of course, Salesforce we use ourselves. We were able to use that and then provide consulting services on a remote basis. The third leg of that stool, in terms of coming through COVID, which wasn't so good, is, as you know, I'm sure you can probably relate to this a little bit, is it kind of put companies into a freeze relative to dollars that they had to spend or would spend. And, in some cases, the companies weren't actually open. And so when you're in the talent generation business, there certainly weren't very many organizations hiring during that process. There were a lot more of them, unfortunately, laying off. And so fortunately, that is behind us. And so all of those have more than come back to life. But I would say we were prepared for COVID in terms of two of those circumstances that we were able to control. That third one, which happens to be the most important one because that's where our revenue comes from, we obviously couldn't control, but we tightened our belts and the team worked together. Our team really made sacrifices. I mean, people literally didn't make as much as they had in the past, and their sacrifice really saved the company. And so we're back and tracking better than we ever have been. In fact, the month of June will be the most successful month we've ever had in the history of the company. So we're back and moving, as we say in the organization, up and to the right as quickly as possible.
Amen to that. I hear you, and I'm so happy for you. And I think that although we look at and it is I would say a negative part that happened in our lives, but for the most part, COVID also allowed us to, like you said, a lot of companies to tighten their belts, get back in touch with their true causes and really focus on, evaluate and focus on, hey, what works, what doesn't work. And a lot of companies like yourselves and many others out there are actually doing even better today than they were prior, I would say, to the pandemic, because of adjustments that were made. So, hey, fantastic. Daryl, we've been talking about Salesforce and the some of the, I mentioned in the introduction some of what makes your firm unique with regards to Salesforce and your partnership with them, et cetera. A lot of businesses out there, when you mention Salesforce, sometimes they cringe because they see this big beast that's really going to, hunker down, or they don't understand it, right? So what tell us a little bit, explain to some of our audience out there, or to our audience out there, I should say, what benefits does a platform like Salesforce bring to a business, and how does VALiNTRY, help that business get it implemented and managed as they move on?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. There's an analogy that I use, Roy, when I talk to people that have that exact same feeling. The reality is Salesforce is a $26 billion company. It's international, and it services, the Fortune 100, here in the United States, but also internationally. There are elements of Salesforce that are used in those large companies, but I'm also glad to say that there are very small companies that can use Salesforce as well. So it's a platform of success for all companies, and it's really agnostic to what your company does. It covers the gamut. And we've, as a consultant in the field, we've worked with all types of companies, from drone companies to, believe it or not, a bird capturing company that captures birds at Walmart stores across the country, to very large healthcare firms, some of the largest healthcare organizations in the country. And so the analogy that I use for people that don't really understand Salesforce, because everybody thinks of it as a CRM, a client relationship management tool, which is what it started as. But it actually quickly evolved into becoming a platform of success by adding, it moved, as I say, horizontally, it moved to the left in terms of adding marketing. It moved to the right in terms of adding, and these are clouds, Sales Cloud, Marketing Cloud. It moved to the right with what I call Service Cloud. And then ultimately it added Community Cloud. And then what they've most recently added is something called Commerce Cloud, which is really supportive of web-based companies. And so it covers the entire vertebrae, if you will, of a sales organization, be it service or product. And so the analogy I use for somebody that's trying to understand it, especially for somebody that's older like myself, is, I remember well the days before there were cell phones, and in particularly cell phones with apps. And so our cell phone no longer is just a phone, which is what, for half my life, we just had phones for phones. And I know you're an expert given your background with phones, as well as, cybersecurity and what have you. But anyway, obviously we carry our cell phones with us. There's apps that allow us to do all kinds of things now in terms of photos and weather and specialty, social media. And I mean, you name your expertise. If you're a doctor, there's a, PDR that's available. And so they really are platforms of personal success. And Salesforce is nothing but a very large business iPhone. And so what they've done is they've taken these core clouds and they've amassed a variety of acquisitions that are really best in class. And so when a company participates in Salesforce, there's costs associated with these, but they can actually pick certain specialty services to add to their either sales cloud or marketing cloud. So for example, Tableau is probably one of the most well-known business analyst, business dashboard tools in the country. They acquired that. There's a product called Pardot that a lot of the email marketing that you receive and notifications that companies use. The other thing most people would be shocked at is they probably touch somebody that's using Salesforce and interacting with them almost every day. And so, they've been very successful. But the key question goes back to, I think, what you said at the beginning. Do you have to be a big company to use Salesforce? And the answer is no. The reason is because it's a no programming. It's called a configuration product, and it requires no hardware other than a laptop or a computer to access the web. And that's what's so revolutionary. So it's sold on a subscription basis. And so the lowest price subscription would be for a full product for Sales Cloud, it would be roughly around $150 per user per month. There's lower levels, but that would get you really everything that you needed. And you could start with 1 license, or you could start with 5 licenses. So, but the real key to it being effective, because there are people out there that hate Salesforce because generally it's because of a bad installation, and that's where we come in. And what happens is Salesforce sells the software, but it doesn't custom configure the software to support the business. And as you know, every business does business a different way. There's a different process. And so when a company tries to what we call self-implement, sadly, they buy Salesforce. Generally, it's somebody in operations, either the COO, the president of the company, maybe the CMO. It's forced upon the sales team. It does nothing to support them the way they do business. And all it does is it creates more time and more effort to spend less time in sales. And so those are not successful starts. And we get a lot of calls in terms of trying to remediate those situations. So what we do to avoid that situation is we're a custom configuration shop. And so we work with Salesforce, we get leads from Salesforce. There'll be a company installing Salesforce, and we're the ones that, what I call a good telephone term here too, is we're the ones that actually install the last mile. Meaning that we work with the company, we understand their digital transformation, which is what Salesforce really is the tool for. We're able to actually document their business process and then design Salesforce to support their unique process. And when that process happens, it's music. I mean, it's just people understand the benefit and the efficiency that it really brings. And
go ahead, sorry.
That's what we really do.
And thank you for that. And you were talking there, and first of all, thanks for breaking it down. Secondly, a lot of businesses today, and first of all, I learned something myself in terms of the vertebrae of different clouds that Salesforce has, and for the price point that you mentioned to get that complete suite of services, that's incredible. And I say that because, as entrepreneurs, we like to use a lot of different information systems, but a lot of times we have disconnected data. And I think one of the strengths of Salesforce, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's always tracking everything as well. So you can correlate data, correlate events, make better business decisions, and have a better oversight on everything that's happening within your organization versus, for example, a silo application over here that may only be doing X, another one over here that may be doing Y, one over here doing Z, and then you have to manually, you use reports from them, but you have no way of doing any deep dive analytics or doing any type of forecasting, anything like that, without putting in a ton of work.
Roy, you just hit the nail on the head, but let me just clarify one thing.
Yeah.
The $150 per user per month gets you Sales Cloud. So there are additional fees for those other clouds that
got you
business horizontally. But I want to come back to what you just said, because you absolutely described exactly what Salesforce brings. And I've spent my life in operations. I'm an operations guy. So I'm not doing technical consulting. I'm running the company. And so the holy grail in terms of business operations in this day and age is centralized data. Having what we call a single source of truth within the company. And all my life, I have dealt with silo systems until that system that I told you our IT guy built for me back in the late 1990s, which was really state of the art at the time. In fact, he won an award in CEO magazine. It was so significant.
Nice.
And so anyway, by being able to capture all of the data associated with the entire business flow, and there's flows that we build within Salesforce so that data you can operationally, you can see what's happening in your marketing funnel, what's happening in your sales funnel, you can see what's happening, of course, in service, et cetera, et cetera. So it brings visibility that operators have just never had before. And so, I like to use analogies because sometimes people, can't really relate to what that means. But the way I think of it is Salesforce is the GPS for my business. It tells me where I am. It can point me to where I want to go. And it puts it at my fingertips on my computer. I don't need a mainframe. And I will tell you, Roy, you talked about, the work that goes into connecting those silos. For years, I was the operations guy pounding on the door of IT saying, I need these two lists integrated. And luckily, maybe a week later or longer, I might, be able to get that list, integrated so I could look at it and compare it and what have you. It just was impossible.
Well, I love the analogy on the GPS. I think one thing that you forgot on there is that, Salesforce, there's, you don't have to worry about hearing recalculating, right? And one of the things that, hey, listen, we're all entrepreneurs. We all have that drive and passion. We got into business for a reason because we love what we're doing. But we started off, and I'm sure you can appreciate this. I mean, Excel was, spreadsheets was the way to run a business. And I'm sure you've had scenarios where you're working on a spreadsheet that you believe was shared with everyone, and it's the most up-to-date data, and all of a sudden you have data that the other person doesn't match up, and who has the most recent data, etc. So yeah, that's something that's where there's no recalculation.
Absolutely. The other piece that they've really recognized, Roy, is they've recognized the importance of integration, because it's one thing to say to get this data together and then massage it and generate a business direction, but they've purchased major tools for major business integrations, which Fortune 100 companies use. They have a product called MuleSoft, funny name, but a very important product, a very valuable product, because when these large companies do an acquisition of another company, they don't have the time or the money to go in and rewrite the new company's complete operating system to match, whatever the mothership's operating system have to be. They use MuleSoft, and they're able to integrate those systems and then bring that data together on a consolidated basis. And so to Salesforce's credit, which is, believe it or not, 22 years old, they've had consistent growth of more than 20% every year since they started as a company, which is very admirable as an entrepreneur, an admirable point that I admire. But they recognize that integration is key. And so, not only do they provide these tools to manage the business functionality, but the biggest thing is it integrates. It's an open source type tool it uses apps just like your iPhone. But there's apps that connect to Salesforce, and particularly that connect things as fundamental as QuickBooks. We're entrepreneurs, we know what QuickBooks is.
Yeah.
There's a Salesforce QuickBook app, in terms of integrating it. So that integration, along with a single source of truth as it relates to the data, is really what makes it revolutionary.
And I'll touch on two things there that you said that are highly important. First of all, the integration. I can tell you that almost every solution that's out there today, whether it's cloud-based or not, if you look in their integration portfolio, Salesforce is there. It's the one solution that you will almost always see their name, because everybody wants to integrate with them because of having that single source of truth, as you said before. The other thing is, of course, is that, as business owners, we tend to sometimes think we can take on challenges on our own. And like you rightfully said before, generally, and I remember in the company that purchased my telecom, they looked into Salesforce, and it was the marketing department that was the driver behind this. And of course, just like you correctly stated, it got pushed onto the sales team and it got pushed onto other teams, but there was no collaboration with those teams in terms of what their specific needs were. How best was Salesforce going to support their endeavors, and how collectively all these departments would benefit from having a company like yours come in and custom tailor a solution for them based on their specific needs. And so, if I'm also a person of analogy, and when you were saying about, passing on Salesforce to the sales team and it didn't fit, I just, I imagine myself getting an extra small t-shirt being handed to me by the marketing department.
You must wear this on every sales call, whether you want to or not, right?
Right, exactly, right? So. Right. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. I'm happy. I'm happy to hear everything that you're doing there. And the customization is key. And if there's one important nugget that my audience should take out of this, is that if you do decide to go down the path of Salesforce, make sure you reach out to Daryl and his team. Sorry, Daryl. Make sure you reach out to Daryl and his team, and Daryl, let me ask you before I throw this out there. Do you offer a consultation with businesses who are looking to get in and sort of give them an idea in terms of what it would take for your team to engage with them?
Yes, we work hand in hand with a Salesforce rep. So if we were contacted directly by a company, we would connect them with a Salesforce rep, and together we would identify what it is that they're trying to accomplish and which specific Salesforce solution would take care of that. There's one other thing I wanted to mention, Roy, and you're an expert in this area, and that is, rightly or wrongly, because I don't think there's any system that's absolutely perfect or perfectly secure, I should say. But
true.
Right or wrong, I sleep better at night knowing that Salesforce is responsible for the data and for the security. And so I don't have any hardware on my premise that I'm trying to run or keep secure. I believe, I could be wrong, hopefully I'm a little less vulnerable to ransomware and some of the other things that you hear about. They certainly have a lot to lose if there is a problem.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but you're an expert in the area of cybersecurity. And so, like I said, I might be overly confident or overly relaxed about that, but it's not something I can do anything about. So I sleep a little better at night.
Well, let me put it to you this way. A few years back, I took my wife on a surprise visit to San Francisco. And I thought I was going to San Francisco, and then I realized that the city of San Francisco was actually paying Salesforce to use their campus. So, so my point is that every building in San Francisco was pretty much owned by Salesforce. A company that large spends an exorbitant amount of money in making sure, and particularly since they are the key driver of business data and the key hoster of business data for literally millions of businesses the world over, they invest significantly in cybersecurity, and they have teams that are watching that data and watching their systems 24/7. I don't know this per se because I don't have a tie-in with Salesforce, but that would be, I would say yes, you could sleep better at night because they, you could sleep a lot better at night with your data being inside of Salesforce and their team watching over stuff than if you were sort of mining that or hosting that data in your own little system. So yes.
That's just another thing that I mean, we kind of take it for granted, but just like our Microsoft tools and things like that. But it's beyond what I can think about, but they certainly enable me. They give me the tools that I think help enable me to become a successful entrepreneur in a successful company.
Good with that. And actually, you just provided the perfect segue there, because I was about to ask you next, as a business owner, and an entrepreneur, what keeps you up at night?
Well, first of all, I've lived long enough to know that we have business cycles. And so as good as the business cycle is right now, and as great as the economic stimulus is, and we've got a ton of money sloshing around in the economy, those days end. I've seen the good and I've seen the bad. And so the biggest thing is not to rest on my laurels in terms of preparing. And if I've learned anything in terms of time I've spent talking to you, and it's disaster preparedness, right? So the biggest thing is to try to be aware of what you can't think of. And I doubt that a pandemic, I doubt that a worldwide pandemic was on anybody's disaster plans.
No.
In the world. So you do your best to try to anticipate what could happen. But the biggest thing is my business growing? Because as you know, a business is only going one of two directions. It's either going up and to the right and it's growing, or it's dying. It's which doesn't mean it has to die, but it means you've got to do a lot of work to get the direction reversed, because it's a living, breathing organism that has to be taken care of. So it's making sure that that business growth is happening, and that in the course of doing that, we have satisfied, happy clients, satisfied, happy employees, and that we're really living our company values in terms of helping make that happen. So it's that unexpected, what could happen, because as you know, also Salesforce is just one of the vendors and one of the partners that we count on and depend on. We have an applicant tracking system that's immense with an enormous database, that if that went down, that would have a significant impact on our business. And
oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
The accounting system, or stuff that we just take for granted. So it's those kind of unknowns, I would say, that are the biggest concerns. And then of course, if we're going into an economic downturn or something like that, then there's a different set of there's a different source of insomnia at that point.
I said, my former business partner, he unfortunately passed last year, and I miss him dearly. But there's one thing that he always taught me is he said, he was French, and so in his French accent he would say, "Roy, only paranoiac survive." Well
said.
So awesome. So, tell me a little bit in terms of people who, influence you along the path, and who may have had, the greatest influence on your career.
Sure. I really was very, very fortunate that I landed into really outstanding companies, and really there were mentors that really caused me to move from one company to the next that I followed. But I would say the most important thing that they instilled in me And they instilled it in me to such a degree that I could actually I could look a multi-million-dollar customer in the eye, and if they were asking me to do something that violated our values or integrity, I had the authority to say, no, we're not going to do that. And even if we lost the customer because of it. And so there are probably the major thing I understood is that we had to have a quality product. We had to have a satisfied customer, and we had to live with integrity. And it's, sadly, telling the truth is sort of lost nowadays, I think. It's really something that is really to be cherished, and it really trust is, in my opinion, is it's the monetary value of relationship building and business building. And so they taught me how important that was, and it's never okay to sacrifice that. And so whether it's, being upfront with your employees or being upfront with your customers, whether you messed up or whatever the issue is, that truth and integrity, a quality product, those were all critical in terms of any business that you could apply. But that's really what they taught me.
Those are some of my, I would say, my staunchest non-negotiables, and I can tell you that and you are so right on that, on being upfront, honest, owning, if you messed up, owning it, being truthful and transparent with your customers. And my previous company and telecom, we sometimes had outages, or we sometimes had issues, but I made sure that in the midst of an outage, I would type up an email and send it out to everyone. Now imagine, and I had people telling me at times, well, why are you doing this? They're offline, they can't get it. And then that was not the point. The point is, when they do get back online, they'll know that I left them a message, and that I thought of them. And I will tell you that builds so much trust and credibility with others that before long we became, as another phrase from my former partner, the contract de confidence. When you signed a contract with us, you had the full confidence that you would get the service and you'll be treated right. So amen to that.
Stephen Covey calls that the emotional bank. If you build that emotional bank up, your clients are going to let you slide when you make an inevitable mistake, which we all make.
Yeah, we're human. Yeah. So, and that's important too, because I think sometimes in business, we tend to forget that, we're humans interacting with humans under the name of an entity. But we have to build that rapport and build that level of trust. And as you say, that bank of empathy as well. So tell me a little bit, you stay up at night thinking about the business. You've established a culture that is really taking your company forward, etc. When are you most content, and when are you not?
Well, I spend a lot of time in my business, but when I'm home, I really am home. And so I love my home. I love my family. My wife and I just celebrated our 40th anniversary.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah, so it's time has flown very quickly. We have 4 children, and so I'm very content to be at home. So when I'm at home, I like to be at home. I'm not one of these people that what I learned in the public companies and corporate America was in those days I traveled 80 or 90% of the time across the country, and so when I was home, I needed to be home. So consequently, I'm a terrible golfer. I don't really play golf because I never had time to play golf, because when I was home, I needed to be home. And so I've carried that over. And so I don't bother my employees at home on the weekend, or at night, unless there's something really urgent that we need to do or what have you. But we don't have weekend meetings. But that's time for me and my employees to be with their families, which I think is a very important time, because the majority of the time they're already spending, here at home, which is why we want to have a positive experience. And so that's when I'm most content.
Awesome. So let me ask you this. If you could change one thing on your journey, what is it, and why would you change it?
I'll tell you what I would change. again, I've got a few years on me. And so I go back to the pink Post-it note days where I used to run around the country on airplanes with a stack of pink telephone messages.
So you mean to say you didn't have a smartphone back then?
No, this was pre-smartphone, and that's how old I am. So, so what's interesting, what has become so amazing is the people that I had wonderful connections with and relationships with early in my career. There was really no efficient way to maintain those relationships. I mean, you can do a Christmas card list and things like that, but what we have available today is just amazing in terms of our ability, our LinkedIn, networks, in terms of, I literally have gone through and connected with everybody I could ever think of, going all the way back to my career. So I would just say, staying in touch with those people, not just assuming that this is somebody that's crossed your life at this moment in time, but, letting them know that you care about them, even if it's a sentence here and there, or they see you put a LinkedIn post or something like that. But it's that professional network that I wish I had been able to, I could have done a better job even with the tools that we have, I'll be honest. But having that network and maintaining that network, I think, as you know, relationships determine results.
That's true.
So having that broad range of relationships is going to help elevate you. And then, that's really the key. The only other thing I would say is, I wish I had read How to Win Friends and Influence People earlier in my career. I was probably 30 or 35 years old before I actually read that book. And it's an old book written by Dale Carnegie, as you know. But any new business person that I meet, I always make sure I either give them that book or recommend that book along with the book Traction, which is a really important book in terms of a business process. But anyway, those are the main things, is relationship building that you can maintain and stay connected with over a long period of time.
Awesome. So let me ask you a couple other questions here. What are three most essential nuggets? I mean, let me set this up for you. You're a successful business person. You have been, as you said, you have been fortunate to have had mentors who, taught you along the way, and it was a two-way street, because you grasped on that also in terms of having that desire and passion to and hunger to want to learn, which I think in some cases, if I may say, when I look at some people today, not putting anyone down, you built your career over an extended period of time, and there were a lot of lumps in the road that you had to go through. I see a lot of people landing here today and they all of a sudden want to go there, but they don't have that passion and drive to really want to absorb and learn. So, if you could help business owners out there today, passing on some nuggets that you learned along the way, what are three most essential nuggets that you could pass on?
The first thing is to take a risk and claim to have a business. So, mine and my first wife's business, we refinished furniture when we were in college and set up at flea markets and things like that. But we named the business and had a business. And so I think some people are so conditioned based on their environment, whether what their mom did, what their dad did, that they don't even think of themselves as being able to start a business. And it's so easy nowadays because you can set up a corporation, with $75, you can do it online. It's a formal corporation. You can do QuickBooks online for, I don't know, $12 a month or something like that. It's so easy. But the biggest thing is for people, whether it's successful or not, to be able to claim, I have a business and here's its name, I think is really an important first step, because that gets you past, could I even be a business person or anything like that? Because no matter what it is, just take that first step. Name the business. If you're inclined, reserve the name in that state, which again is very, very inexpensive to do, and then grow that business. It doesn't mean you don't even need to know what you're going to do. So take that step. The second nugget is truth and integrity in terms of all you do is just completely a non-negotiable. That's just it just goes without saying, and you can't fake it with employees. You can't fake it with customers. You know, I tell people, look, I said, I never tell a lie because I can't remember what I say. And then that's the only way I can, if I always tell them the truth, I don't have to remember what I said.
And then you need to tell a lie to correct the lie.
I don't need that stress. I look for that stress-free kind of life. The third thing, and again, I wish I had done a better job with this, and that is the first half of my career, I spent so much time traveling and working that I didn't read enough. And reading is just, it's just life-changing. And so it hasn't been till really the last 20 years, really since I started my own business, that reading and continual learning, being a lifelong learner, I just never grasped how important that is. And, I am not the kind of person that loves to hold a book in my hand and flip the pages. I am the kind of person that loves to listen to Audible. And so whether you're listening to, a biography, a historical biography, a self-help book, some of the books that I just mentioned, they're all available on Audible. It's so easy to listen, while you multitask and what have you. But to be that lifelong learner and be committed to, learning. And again, it doesn't have to be traditional learning like you think of as school or even self-help. You're going to learn so much in terms of understanding some of our, folks from history. As we know, history repeats itself. And so,
it does. It does. And the old, and the old adage of knowledge is power, right? So,
those are the three nuggets.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing those. So let's go on a voyage here, and we're going to delve into two different areas here. So where's your dream vacation spot and why?
Well, first of all, I live in Orlando, so we live in the tourist mecca of the world here. As you know, you live here too, and so so interestingly enough, big crowds and are not my thing. I rather would go to rural wilderness types of locations, and so an area that I've not had an opportunity to explore in my lifetime is Alaska. And nice. So in the day, I've enjoyed fishing trips. And so that's a wonderful place to do that. But just to be able to see the wildlife, and it's just so pristine in terms of a wilderness and things like that. So that's on my bucket list. I actually have a trip scheduled in 2022.
Nice.
So I'll get to that eventually, but it'll be a little while. COVID kind of put the brakes on that. So it's on my bucket list, and I aim to get there by 2022.
Well, I've always had a dream on going to Alaska by cruise, taking an Alaskan cruise. And my wife has always said, that she was born, I would say, on dry soil. So, the cruise ship is not for her. And then, of course, COVID, with everything that happened, those people being stuck out for months and months, I can sort of wipe that one off my whiteboards. We'll be flying there. Awesome. So the other area I wanted to delve in is that you have a hobby, which is that you are an avid bonsai tree hobbyist, and you have more than 25 different tree specimens in your collection. So tell us a little bit about that and how you got started with this. I mean, take us down.
I'm not sure that has anything to do with business, but anyway, I do have bonsai trees. I enjoy them very much. I enjoy landscaping and my yard and what have you. But I actually have two Asian daughters that we adopted from China, and saw real bonsai trees in China, and just became so fascinated with these very ancient trees growing in these very small pots. And there's nothing special about those trees. They're the same trees that are growing in your yard or growing, out on a mountain or what have you. But they require a lot of care from the standpoint they need to be fed on a routine basis. They have to be watered every day. So you have to set up some automatic systems to do that. But they grow and they respond in a kind of a strange way. They're actually an easier to take care of pet than, say, a dog or a cat or something like that. But I get a kick out of, when they bloom or when they fruit or, whatever the tree happens to do. And they're diverse and different. And there's ones with thorns and there's ones that fold up when you touch them. But it's just a lot of fun. And it's a lot of fun to see the different kinds and then also to be successful. First of all, some of the trees are, 25 or 30 years old that I haven't had their whole life. But, I've had some of them for 10 or 12 years. And so, just to be able to know that that tree's existed and you've taken care of it that long, there's something satisfying about that.
You were mentioning all of that, and I was, and you said when I asked you that question, you said, I'm not sure what that has to do with business, but you actually just outlined the journey of an entrepreneur, and I don't think you could have done it in a better way. And in terms of just describing the passion and love that you have for the bonsai tree, so thank you for that, and thank you for sharing it with us. So, Daryl, I'm going to ask you. I got a final question here that I always throw out to my audience. This has been real fun. And so this one here goes along the task of putting together a dream board of advisors or of influential people. So if you had the opportunity to maybe take one or two or even three people that you could form this dream board, they could be dead or alive. Who would they be? Why would you choose them? And how would they influence your journey moving forward?
Wow. That is an interesting question. Well, just given what I'm currently doing, the first name that comes to mind is Mark Benioff. Mark Benioff is the founder and chairman of Salesforce. And so in terms of his vision of what Salesforce does for business and supports business, he would absolutely, be the supporter of technology supporting what we're doing. So I would say definitely Mark Benioff. In terms of somebody in history, I read biographies. I enjoy biographies, and so it's the second person who, and this has become very popular with a Broadway musical that's out right now. But I would love to have Alexander Hamilton on my board. If you've read his story and read his book, it is astounding in terms of his knowledge of the world and history. His ability to write is unparalleled. I mean, if you understand how much he wrote and how much is available, he just was amazing in terms of, starting the Coast Guard for the United States of America, starting our banking system. So in terms of business, he understood business and commerce, and he started the Coast Guard because he started, with our first customs that we collected, our first taxes. And so he was a true businessman and a worldwide businessman. He was born in the Caribbean, and so he had a real understanding of international trade and different foreign currencies, and just way, 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 way ahead of his time. And so I would say Alexander Hamilton, Mark Benioff. Let's see. She's dead now, but somebody that I think that would keep that group, because there's some fairly big egos that would be in the organization. I think the part of the organization that would be focused on our mission in terms of giving back, which I think is very important, would be Mother Teresa. She's the quintessential example of humility, and I think that she would keep the egos and business in check while we balanced out, what came into the organization from a success standpoint to helping those that really needed it. So very, very unusual board. I'd never really thought about that question. So anyway, that's the thoughts off the top of my head.
I would tell you that's a beautiful board. I would love to be a fly on the wall to just to see Mother Teresa sitting in the middle and trying to mediate the discussion between Hamilton, who was forthright in his own ways, and Benioff with all the technology and innovation that he has going on, and having Benioff explain to Hamilton why the city should be paying him for the campus he has out there in San Francisco.
I will say one thing for Benioff, and that is they do so much for the city of San Francisco.
Oh, yes, definitely.
What they do in terms of giving back, which creates the Salesforce culture and community, is astounding. So you'd have a lot in common with Mother Teresa from that standpoint.
Yeah, that's an amazing board, and I can, this has been great. I can see just by that board and everything you've shared with us why VALiNTRY is moving upwards and onwards. I'm a firm believer that every ship needs to have a captain who has the foresight and who can really bring the sailors and everybody together to make sure that they stay the course and tack when they need to tack and make changes and catch the wind when they need to and different things like that. And you, sir, that is you. I thank you for sharing your journey with our audience. It's always a pleasure to be in your company, and I look forward to catching up with you, kudos and Godspeed on everything that you're doing.
Well, Roy, thank you so much. I've enjoyed our conversation and have appreciated the support that you've provided in terms of the information with cybersecurity and the role that you play here in Central Florida, because I've heard you speak many times. You've visited my company. And so I want to say thank you to that as well.
Well, thank you. And I look forward to us doing great things together. And I have one more parting question for you, and which is, if a member of our audience wanted to get more info about VALiNTRY or get in touch to you, how best would they connect with you?
Our website, valintry.com, VALINTRY, would probably be the quickest and the easiest. Or they could call my office number at 407-205-1121. That would be another way that they could contact me, or my email, which is ddixon, DDIXON, @valintry.com.
Awesome. And we'll be sure to put all that information down below in the podcast so that our audience has access to that. Daryl, thank you very, very much for sharing your journey with us. This was a wonderful ride. I mean, I was sitting here listening to you talk, and I felt like I was a little fly on your shoulder, and I had been through all these times and experiences with you.
I know you can relate.
So thank you very, very much. Always a pleasure, my friend. I appreciate you. Thank you for everything that you do for our Central Florida community, and Godspeed, and we'll catch up soon.
Thank you so much. Have a good weekend.
You too. All right. Hi, I'm Roy Richardson, host of the Dynamic Business Leaders Podcast. Are you a business owner or a leader of a successful business? If yes, we'd love to have you as a guest on our podcast. Our goal is simple. We provide a platform for leaders to share their experiences to benefit others. We want to hear your story, how you got started, the challenges you faced along the way, and your passion today. If this sounds like you, or if you know someone who fits the criteria, then be sure to visit our website at dynbizpodcast.aurora-infotech.com. That's dynbizpodcast.aurora-infotech.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the notification bell to be notified when our next podcast video is live. Or, if you'd rather listen to us during your car ride, you can also follow us on your favorite audio channel using the corresponding links below. Thanks, and once again, keep crushing it.